Gentle Yoga Warriors Conscious Conversations podcast to help you grow and discover who you are, to develop a deeper, more complete side of yourself via conscious talks, self-love, meditation, and by interviewing some of the most inspiring guests on the planet. Our podcast is rich with deep talks. Just go to thegentlyogawarrior.com for more information. Hello everybody, I'm your host and I'm super excited because I want to know more about you, dear listener. And I now have voicemail on my website, thegentlyogawarrior.com. So if there's a specific show that you would like me to do or cover a subject matter, then leave a voicemail message on there. And if it's in balance with my show, I will use your voicemail recording on the show and also do a show geared towards that. So feel free to reach out there. So we are now in season 13, and season 13 on this glorious day, just the other side of equinox, I'm about to record my first episode of season 13. Remember, there's 13 moons in a year. It's quite a magical number, even though a lot of people are quite superstitious about it. And what it is we are going to cultivate that spring magic, think vibrancy, think planting the seeds, thinking getting things into action and kind of joy and movement. And I'll just share with you what I actually wrote about this season. So I said, what seeds do you want to plant and bloom? What weeds do you want to let go of? What areas of life do you want to breathe new life into? Shall we take a deep breath together now? Let's just let it all go. So how can you learn to be more present via nature? So in a few moments, I'm going to have the amazing Birgitta Vishnu. Birgitta is the founder of Power Soul Healing, which she's a light empowerment coach, a soul configurator, and a bit of a galactic surfer, and author of the book Becoming Authentic Me, now available on Amazon worldwide. On a website, it says, Birgitta Vishnu is a soul empowerment coach and light configurator, surfing the cosmic waves across the vastness of the multidimensional multiverse, delivering messages from the collective of light beings and masters, teaching to aid humanity. She sees herself as a bit of a courier for those that wish to bring messages to humanity. Her often turbulent journey has been a steep learning curve. She is who she is, she says, and she's learning to embrace all quirky aspects of herself. Love that. Often swimming through the darkness of her trauma, yet never giving up. Birgitta hopes that people will awaken to what life is all about, unlocking their own potential and becoming authentically them. So without further ado, joining us from England, we have Birgitta Vishnu joining us on the show. So welcome to the show.
Hi, Jane. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today. And I was looking at your book before you came online, and it looks amazing. And congratulations, first of all, for having that out in the world, and what service is that going to be. And we can share more about that with our listeners in a minute. So you are lucky number 1 in season 13, and we're doing a special season on spring magic. So think like vibrancy, kind of bringing that blooming kind of abundant nature into our listeners' world. So I thought, looking at your profile, what about doing an episode on spring magic me with more power? And I thought, who better to talk to us today than you? So Birgitta, would you mind sharing a bit about your journey to our listeners and your experiences towards authenticity and fulfillment?
Yeah, authenticity is a word that's been thrown around so much these days. It's like, what does that even mean? And how do we achieve that? Well, it's pretty simple. As I said earlier, it's pretty much a return to love. Love is the answer to everything. It's the key. But my journey started when I was born, right? I was born in 1974. And my childhood was the start of my childhood was great, and we moved to Singapore, Malaysia, because of my dad. He had a company in agricultural projects and poultry farming and all that. And when he went bankrupt, we stayed with a friend of the family in Kuala Lumpur, and I was like 10 years old, 10 or 11 years old, and I was abused by a friend of the family. And in the 1980s, life was very different to what it is today. You didn't really talk about these things, or I didn't even understand it. And I kept that with me till the age of 19, until my mom, uh, we were watching an Oprah Winfrey show, and my mom said, "I'm so glad it never happened to either of you." And so I remained quiet. And that's when it came out, and I told her, and the first thing she said to me, "Was it your dad?" And I said, "No, it was this guy that we stayed with." And she's like, "Well, if your father had still been alive, he would have strangled him." But so going back, my dad passed away when I was 14. I got bullied in high school because I was super, super skinny. And when we went to Belgium to the Ardennes, we went like camping, there was this very popular kid. I remember this. He doesn't remember it though. Where he said, in front of all the people, he pulled up my arm and he's like, "Look how skinny she is." And that was horrible.
Oh, awful.
Yeah.
That's not nice at all.
Not nice at
Gosh.
all.
Gosh, that's a reflection of them though, right? To do that to you.
Totally is. But that's always the case. You have very popular kids, then you have the very mousy kids. And I was a very mousy kid, and I was very timid. And so some of these people just copied my homework as well. But I was also good at starving myself. When I was about 10 years old, my mom caught me with my finger in my throat, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm
Oh.
like, "Well, I don't know. I just didn't know what to tell her." But as I grew older into my teens and even into my adulthood, I was very good at that, because even at school, I'd throw away my lunches, my homemade lunches, and I would sit at the dinner table at night and, I have my dinner. But that was just me. And from there on, I did a modeling course because my mom wanted me to gain more confidence. That wasn't working for me, I think, because, I always say this: when you suffer from trauma and you don't heal it, you create another bit of trauma. That's just the way it works. And, I was assaulted in the modeling industry as well. But when I was doing this modeling course to try and straighten out my back, there was a hairdresser that wanted me for a show, which was great. But he chopped off all my hair into a pixie cut. That's horrifying, Jane.
Oh no, I hate that when people cut our hair and we don't want them to
Oh,
do it.
oh no. And I have this hair that, it doesn't stay straight. It's very wavy. It just it goes everywhere. And that didn't help me. And then, my stepdad passed away when I was about 25, and I always supported my mother, and I just had no one to support me. And you could say that I rolled into the wrong crowd, but I take full responsibility. I did like 3-4 months of drugs, recreational, but I could have killed myself because I blacked out one night, memory loss. So yeah, that wasn't my proudest moment. And I only started to heal when I was about close to my 40s. It took me forever. And it's not like I came here with a cheat sheet, when I was born. I had to figure it out myself. But in 2009, that's when my healing journey started. Because I rolled into many dysfunctional relationships, because I myself was broken. And you know what we do? We try and fix other people, whereas we have to fix ourselves. And we try and mold someone, the way to our liking, and that just it doesn't work.
Oh, okay. So I was listening to your story, and I can see quite a few similarities, and kind of to my part. But I was listening, and I'm just thinking that you are being so authentic and brave to kind of share things, and like you said, the 80s was a very different time,
Yeah.
to what it is now. And I think the strength that you've gained from that enabled you to kind of help more people? Because like you said, quite often we can try and heal other people's before we kind of put the kind of spotlight on what we kind of need to heal. In my opinion, it's two things, isn't it? It's healing ourselves, but at the same time as healing others, but then also, well, enabling them to heal themselves, but also kind of accepting our humanness, because we will make mistakes. We're not meant to be born like all perfect, are we? And kind of,
well, what's the point of it all that?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I completely agree. So to our listeners, how can they bring more power into their life? And also I think some people can be a bit scared of the word power because they see so many examples of abuse of power. So could you explain how they can bring more power in, and what is like a kind of balanced power in someone's life?
So that's broad. I love working with the Ascended Master Saint Germain, by the way, because he's very much about the I am power, right? And power is not a bad word at all, because what's happened to many of us, we have disempowered ourselves. That's how we walk through life. I was a people pleaser. I've completely disempowered myself, even in relationships. And yes, I even tried to take my own life when my ex was in bed with the Crips in Holland. He's turned his life around because he was a crack addict anyway. So, that's an example of having completely disempowered myself and I didn't remain in that victimhood per se because I soldiered on. I had these mechanisms in place, the starving myself and working like a maniac. But I was playing Houdini with my emotions because I was running from them continuously, not wanting to confront them. That is one of the main things where many people run from their emotions. They run from their issues. And that doesn't work. You really need to take that responsibility and take back your power. And that means you don't let people, run around with you, take the mickey out of you. And you do not allow them. It's very funny how humanity is, because we allow the opinions of others to sway us rather than remaining true to ourselves. Because it doesn't matter what other people say, it matters what you think of you. I think that's very, very important. And people are so afraid to be judged. They have a fear of everything. They have a fear of hurting themselves. But I think fear is merely a beta blocker within the mind. It's created within the mind. We weren't born with fear. That's, created by society. When we're born, we're pure love because that's our essence. That's our nature.
And if we do like to fit in with the rest of society,
we do.
Even though
yes.
even though it's not the best thing for us, it's just that we don't want it. It goes back, I think, to the olden days where it was like survival in a group. So we didn't, if we just be different or stand out, then we'd kind of be risk a run of having to be on our own, which might have been dangerous in the olden days, but not so much now. And it's quite, I find that fascinating, actually. I find that a fascinating subject. So what is the key to flourishing in life? And I love this question. I just love the word flourish.
So flourish. And when you were talking about spring, the seasons go in cycles, and we too go in cycles. We go through our experiences and we learn from them and we let go. Well, many people choose not to let go, but to flourish in life, it's all about a return to love. That's it. That's why we're here. Because if we love ourselves, we can learn to love other people and accept them as they are. We embrace them like our brothers and sisters, rather than walking around in this egotistical mindset, thinking that we're all separate from one another. We could achieve so much more when we work together. And especially when it comes to a return to a love for ourselves. How many people can say, when they look in the mirror, I love you? Not many people can. It's something that my father taught me when I was a child. And he said, stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself, I love you. And I was like, what is this? When I was so young, but now I'm okay. I mean, there are days I'm not perfect, Jane. There are days where I'm like, yeah, no, not having it. But it's all about self-care and self-nurturing. And it's not about, it's when we return to our love for ourselves, we, well, we heal ourselves because that's what we do. Without healing, there is no self-love. And without self-love, we can't heal.
Yeah.
So
I agree. So, like you said, what I'm just saying is kind of, would you say healing then is about being like on a kind of wave? Because, like you said, some days you have good days like everyone else, and
yeah,
things. I think it's kind of maybe seeing that kind of roller coaster
yeah,
of life, and kind of realizing that and everything's always moving,
yes.
and we're supposed to feel all the emotions, aren't we? We're not.
Yep.
Sometimes people think, oh no, I must be positive 24/7. I don't think that works either. It's like, yeah, I've just got a huge bill. Oh yeah, I must be positive. It's like, it's not, it's almost denying someone's feelings. But would
Yeah,
you say that having a way to kind of navigate through them is a key as well?
absolutely. You have to walk through your emotions. You can't walk around them.
Yeah.
That's like what I said. You're playing Houdini, you're eluding your emotions, or you're playing whack-a-mole and keep suppressing them. Eventually, it's going to come out somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Because you are at a dis-ease within yourself. Your soul is not aligned within your body because you're trying to conform to someone that you're not. And you need to feel at ease within your own skin. So
Mm.
you have to walk through any of your issues, through any of your experiences, because it's like, you need to take magnifying glass and you need to look at why you're feeling this way. You need
Mm.
to analyze that. Now, for others, I mean, I don't care how people heal themselves. I went a holistic route. I started out with Reiki because counseling didn't work for me. The counselor just said to me, Brigitte, you're strong enough. You're going to be fine. After my ordeal in Holland, that didn't work for me. But for others, a counselor may work, cognitive therapy, whatever it is that you feel pulled towards. I will only say this, with medication, it will keep suppressing your emotions. That's
Mm.
the one thing that I will say. But at the end of the day, people have to do what they feel comfortable with.
What people feel comfortable with, and kind of getting some help to find the root cause of why you're
Yes.
feeling. And I agree, it's not one
Mm.
shoe fits. Also, this, like for me, it's kind of yoga, shamanism, walking,
Yeah.
nature. For someone else, it might be Tai Chi, karate. There's all kinds of different ways to kind of
Yeah.
to get around it. So how does, because I thank you for sharing about your earlier life traumas, and I'm just wondering, how does one overcome traumatic and difficult circumstances to re-empower oneself? Because I can imagine a lot of people will feel lost on what those
Yeah.
steps could be.
Yeah. So the first thing that's really important is to take accountability and to take responsibility for your life, because we're all responsible for our own lives. And nobody can change. Nobody's going to, you have to make the changes within. It's up to you if you want to have a better life and not remain as you are, where everything's gone to pot, so to speak, because of everything that you've gone through, then you need to look at yourself and take that responsibility. And I think that's the most important thing. And then you have to figure out what is it for me? It's really looking at yourself and thinking, what are the right steps for me to take?
Mm.
And that is just really important. I can tell you, I mean, for me, it's like I said, I mean, I do work out, but I also meditate. And that helps recenter myself.
Mm.
And that is a step forward. Like for you, it's like yoga, right?
Yeah, yoga and meditate, but literally I could not live without meditation. I think it kind of, like I say, it's like hoovering the brain. Like it kind of gets all as much as
It
like
is.
hoovering the brain.
Absolutely. And I will always say to people, what's good if you're very new to meditation, go onto YouTube, either listen to 432 Hertz meditations, which for 432 hertz is really about rebalancing yourself and recentering yourself. And also listen to 20-minute meditations by David J.I. And he's got so many, from fear to anxiety to confidence. And you just plug it in and you listen to the guided meditation. And he's all about the breath, because the breath is very important. And that's something that I learned in India at the Art of Living Center, which is my
Oh,
next book that's
wow.
coming out. But yeah, and it's all about, because we don't, as you know, we human beings only breathe till about here, till our, um, halfway, till about here.
Mm.
That's it. That's called shallow breathing. And it's really about breathing from the root chakra all the way to the crown chakra, and do it at a count of 4, hold it 4, and then breathe back down again 4 and hold it for 4. That's what I always tell people to start out with. And once they've mastered that, then do the counts of 8, because then it becomes deeper. And the one thing, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, people will say, yeah, but my mind wanders. That's great, because if it wanders and you notice it, then, pull it back to the breath.
Mm, absolutely. And I would say, you don't, just because your mind's wandered to a thought, it doesn't mean you have to touch that thought. You can kind of just, in your meditation, you can kind of just think, actually, yeah, my mind's gone here, but I'm going to come back to my breath.
Yes.
It's kind of like,
Yeah,
you have the
absolutely.
power to steer it back rather than kind of just go there. So I was reading your profile, and I really liked on your website, it's about unleashing your own inner alchemist. What is that? How do we do it? And what one thing can listeners do today to enable that?
So alchemy, when did it spring up? Well, it was in ancient Egyptian times, but it also sprang up back in the Renaissance period. And alchemy is, as you know, it's transforming lead to gold, right? In the chemical formulation. But it also means transforming our heaviness, the trauma of our experiences, of all that we've, carried through life. It's about alchemizing and healing that, transforming that to gold, to our enlightened and healed self, so that we let go of that load. And that's basically what it is. So it's all about healing yourself. And once you're healed, it's about breathing that sigh of relief, because you've left that behind and now you can move forward.
I
At the
like
end of
that.
the day, we're our own worst enemy.
We are, definitely. I know I can be my own worst enemy sometimes. even though I would like to say, I would say I was a reasonably healthy person and I have like holistic practices, I still kind of can be enticed by dark chocolate from the corner shop.
When I'm in meetings, I used to take the Cadbury mini eggs, and now I'm like, I can't eat them anymore.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
even see them anymore.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. You can kind of go through that threshold of kind of let going of sugar.
Yep.
Like I kind of let go of like refined sugar like a few years ago, and it made a big difference. It made a big difference to my life, because especially like growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was all about as much sweet stuff as it possibly could. Well, it was in my household anyway. It was like like it wasn't, people weren't so health conscious here as they are kind of now. So is there anything that you still struggle with now? I know we kind of touched on this a bit, but I
I
was
do.
kind of like, yeah. And if so, how do you navigate through it?
Yeah, so currently, and I'll be very honest about that, I really struggle with my corporate job. And I've been working like 70 hours a week, and that's not on.
Wow, that's a
And
lot.
but I realize that this is not what I want. And so I have a backup plan, and I'm working on that, because this is not the life that I want. There is no balance, and balance is very, very important. So it's either, do we allow ourselves to be lived, or do I choose to live my life the way I see fit? And I think that's really, really important. So have I allowed to I've kind of allowed myself to be disempowered. Yes, I have, because the job needs to be done.
Mm.
And I did say to my mom, I said to my mom, I cannot do this anymore. And I'm making this backup plan, and I'm going to do it. Because my spiritual work is actually far more important, and I don't have enough time for it. But then I also think sometimes we get pushed into a corner or into certain situations so that we can understand what we're doing to ourselves. And not everybody is like that, because they're just like, what, the work needs to be done and this is my life and I need to pay the bills. But hang on a second, if you're not happy somewhere, then make the necessary changes, because eventually, we are all energy. We attract everything. I always say what we vibe out is exactly what we reel back in. Well, I said to Spirit, I didn't really ask for this, but it's good, because if I was still comfortable and not making these insane hours, I would have been okay. But this is really pushing my boundaries and saying, you know what, I want a different kind of life. So yes, I do struggle at times, and I do meditate. I do, but sometimes there'll be days where I would just crash out after a really long day.
Well, I'm not surprised after 70 hours.
It's not normal.
It's a little bit ridiculous for anyone in a way, but I can understand you kind of working towards kind of transition to do what you want. And I think luck's going to be on your side, because what I've heard so far, it all sounds absolutely fabulous. Would you mind explaining about your book and your services? And I was looking at the contents as well. Wow. So yeah, I'll put it over to you now to share, if you don't mind.
I was just going to add to the other part,
Uh-huh.
one other thing very quickly.
Yes.
So sometimes we get put into situations where we just need a kick up the ass, and that's exactly what's happened to me. So it's all good, and I'm glad it's happened the way it's happened.
That's a good way to see it. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to see life from a different perspective. And I will say this, and I talk about this in my book as well, where I say that life is merely an experiment to experience.
Life is merely an experiment to experience.
Because that's what it is.
Mm.
So, and what do we take with us, Jane? All we take with us are the memories.
Yeah.
And so however you choose to experience life, it doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong, but never remain sitting. Really? Okay. They say never remain sitting by the boondocks, and crying your eyes out, but rather take that responsibility for your life and just get up and start moving forward. So yeah, my book, yes. Becoming Authentically Me. So it's split into two parts. The first part, it talks about the conscious shift, the transformational times that we find ourselves in. And, I work with I mainly work with the Ascended Master Saint Germain, but there's also Archangel Michael, Hilarion. There are also the Galactics that I work with, the Pleiadians. So they talk about love. And I was like, I'm not putting that in there. And they're like, Brigitte, just put it in there. And so I write very much in prose. Some of them they will have the Dai and the Thou, and I just, follow their lead. And they take life, as they say, well, take life with a pinch of salt and just add some flavor to it. And yeah, it's very, very true. I mean, mea culpa. I'm guilty of it as well. I used to roam around in my experiences, and keep holding on, like, even though the ship was sinking, I'd still hold on. And that's what people just do. So the second part talks a lot about my life and everything that I've been through. And there are some exercises as well, and how you can overcome your own trauma and live a far more fulfilled life. But I also talk about the fact that there is no death, because that's just something that was created, and it's it's a word in the human dictionary, because we're energy, so we merely let go of our physical embodiment and we go back to spirit. At the end of the day, Jane, we're all star seeds.
We are definitely all star seeds, and we're kind of having this human experience together at this particular time on this planet. So isn't that a celebration for sure?
I think so. Yeah,
definitely.
But absolutely. And I know that currently, I mean, times are not easy.
Definitely not.
And no, they're not. And we're going through, it's almost like a darker period right now, because I can feel that energetically as well. And I think many, many people are struggling. But this has happened so that people start to wake up. And I think that is important. We live in a very much, and I talk about this as well, in a very much a created artificial society. And many feel very, very uncomfortable. That's exactly why it was created, to keep people, in line. I always call it, we're like robots working along the assembly line of life in this factory of Earth.
I agree. I think there is forces that haven't got time to go on this now, but we have having on again. I'd love to. There's forces that kind of don't kind of really want us to wake up, but ultimately love is the greatest force, and there's so much that is here to kind of like help us, and I feel that it will kind of all come right in the end. And I guess it's like moods, isn't it? Sometimes we have to go down to come up. So maybe we're kind of gonna. Then everything's going to change. I don't know. I've got a feeling about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. So yeah, I also, I talk about depression. I talk about that with Archangel Michael, actually, in a Q&A session with him. And he goes through all these narratives about what depression is, and he sums it up in one sentence. He says, depression, so it simply means you've shot your mind to hell.
Oh, so it can't take him. Yeah, I like that. You shot your mind to hell. Yeah,
that's basically that's what we've done.
Yeah, it sounds like your book's got a lot of solutions to help people kind of get their power back by navigating through all different things.
What I do is light language healing or crystalline frequency healing, and that is very, very powerful. And I use my cosmic and alchemy singing bowls, but I don't always need to use them. But it's just for the toning. And I love light language because it's powerful. And people are like, what is light language? And it's really, for people that don't understand it, it's like gerbil language. And it's a lot of hand movements when I do it. I'm happy to demo it for you.
Yes, please. Do
you want
Yeah, definitely go for it.
Okay, so do you have an intent?
Okay, I'm launching my shamanic healing part of my business. So kind of help it come to full bloom. That's an intent.
Yes, it is. Yes, I really like that. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
There we are. All right. So intent for okay. Ushinini kani nini ali kikina. Uya makatata tata tatinini ya titi acha titi titi ai makakali ni ya titi nita sasasania. Uya makalati titi achinini yani kiki atasisi ali kihatani titi titi acha titi. Uya makatiti titi titi ya. Mama iya la la la. Khushinana tita tata atalia katalia tisisi anima katatatia alia. Uyamani isina uyo tatatinina tatatata hini tatalaiki a titi a. Uyamani atin ai alikan ai mama uy mama isinini alikakania a.
As you said that, I could feel it in the back of my throat. Shak, I could feel like the back of my throat, kind of like the energy there. So, thank you. That's fantastic. It's beautiful. I've heard it like language before, but it's to witness it like live like this is really beautiful. And I can't I can't even put into words really. And I think that's
No,
right.
that's good.
Yeah, perfect. Oh wow! So you can have those services, dear listeners, if you check out the website. I will leave the details in the show notes of your website. So Birgitta, is there anything else that you wish everybody would know? Anything else that you'd like to share for the last question of the show?
Now I'm high in my head. Sorry. Sorry, that happens.
Yeah.
So I will say this. Never think that you are not loved, because you're loved by so many in the otherworldly realms. And never think that you're alone, because truth be told, you have your guides and many others in the otherworldly dimensions. And know that I too love you.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes. That's a very sound piece of advice for our listeners. Um, Birgitta, you've been an absolute vision and it's been so natural and lovely to speak to you today. I will put details of your website, but would you just like to share it for our listeners? If you could tell them
Yeah,
what your website is, that would be
sure.
fantastic.
It's www.powersoulhealing.com.
You can check out her book Becoming Authentically Me, which is on Amazon worldwide. And having looked at I've read it the brief amount I've read, it's well worth a read. So Birgitta, I will let you have some rest since you work such long hours, but thank you for joining us today. As always, dear listeners, the meditation inspired by today's show, but thank you very much, Birgitta Visner, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jane.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. As promised, here is your meditation inspired by today's show. Top tips for the meditation is either sit nice and cross-legged on the floor with a nice straight back. Always nice to sit on a block or a cushion. Or if that's not available for you, you sit in a chair with the back nice and straight. The important thing is you're not slouching. And if you're doing something that requires your concentration, all you need to do is just pause this and you can reconvene the meditation at a time that is good for you. If you're doing the meditation, let's begin.
Live in a private forest, and I'm surrounded by birds, and you can hear the water from the brook and the little river behind me. I'm going to take some slow, calm, deep breaths and just start to take some steps. Via your imagination, you can also be in a forest with all its noises. And as you breathe slowly, calmly and deeply in this forest, you start to take a little journey. So you're walking slowly on the ground. And as you walk along, in your imagination, you know that change is made up of steps, always done from a place of mindfulness as much as we can. Sometimes we have to dive in deep, and sometimes we have to step in slow. But whatever we do for life, everything happens by making the first step. So what first steps can you make today? What changes? Perhaps to slightly go outside one's comfort zone, which isn't always what we want to do. However, remember, there's more discomfort in life by not making changes that are for our good then by being in the comfort of unease. Disease in the body is when we're at disease. So, what small steps can you make today as you walk through this imaginary forest? The sound of the feet on the ground, the smell of the flowers, the wildflowers, the rustle of the little creatures, the song of the bird. What is your song? What is your goal? What is your mission in life? The textures of the leaves, the ground. What can you show up today to do that might be slightly discomfort, but in the long term will bring ease? Whatever that is for you, perhaps as we come out of this meditation, as you inhale, as you exhale, you begin to make a note of it. And with each day, you can make a note of which step you can make towards that. It can be a little step. Sometimes it's a giant leap. Sometimes it's just a tiny micro step. But whatever it is, just step into your flow.
So thank you so much, dear listeners, for taking the time to listen and support our show today. And if you want any more information on what we have to offer, check out thegentleyogawarrior.com.